What is up, guys? Welcome back. Hope you guys are doing well. Market is not performing its best today, but I was able to take advantage of one of our plays from the last video. Check that out if you guys are interested. Today we are doing a Polestar update. I want to go over a few important things that I think are important to know. The market price is obviously not reflecting the news today, but we are long-term investors, so good news is still good news. I also want to give you guys an update on the chart, do a little bit of chart analysis, so make sure to watch to the end of the video for that. If you guys are enjoying the content I am making, please drop a like on the video and consider subscribing to the channel. But let's not keep you guys waiting, let's get started with today's video. You guys remember from one of our earlier videos, Polestar is embracing blockchain to double down on the climate transparency goals. This is going to help them record information across the entire system. Polestar is hoping this will help supply chain transparency with public and the customers, so they'll be able to see every bit of material that is used to build their electric vehicles. Today we got an update. Polestar positions the supply chain in China for a green future. Polestar gains a clear vision of a sustainability strategy across all divisions and functions in its Chinese operations, while covering best practice to increase climate neutrality. So this is kind of a gray area for me personally. I don't know too much on it, but I do want to cover just a little bit to give you guys an idea, and then you guys can dig further into it. But the climate change demands immediate actions by industries around the globe, and China has been tightening its regulations of various sectors, including the automotive industry, to promote environmental protection. Polestar wanted to be proactive and lead by example when it comes to sustainability by better aligning its supply chain to sustainable practices. So the main bulk of this is that they ended up partnering with Bearing Point, which helped Polestar define a strategic roadmap to realize climate neutrality, circularity, transparency, and cultural inclusion of its own supply chain. Bearing Point provided Polestar with a four-step approach, resulting in a strategic roadmap covering short, medium, and long-term objectives. They also defined new processes and dedicated tools to support sourcing and procurement, production, logistics, and marketing. I found that the main takeaway is actually down here at the bottom. By leveraging new dedicated tools, Polestar can make data-driven decisions for supplier processes. The company can access and monitor its supply sustainability from economic, environmental, and social perspectives, as well as appraise their cost versus sustainability benefits. This allows Polestar to challenge its suppliers to improve their service offerings by integrating more eco-friendly practices into their own supply chain. So a little over my head, but in conclusion, Polestar is executing its roadmap, aided by Bearing Point, to help bring some of these eco-friendly practices into their own supply chain. And so this can go hand in hand with their blockchain plans to lead by example and promote a more sustainable environment. You guys let me know if you can elaborate on some of this and bring a little bit more clarity. Any insight would be greatly appreciated. So leave that in the comments below. Alright, so the bigger news of the day I think is definitely going to be Polestar launching the Polestar 2 in South Korea. This came out today, January 18. I always try to deliver the latest news on Polestar if I think it's worth covering. So make sure to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. But Polestar is launching its Polestar 2 in the South Korean market. Prices for the electric sedan are going to start around 55 million won, which is about, I think, 46,000. That'll be for the single engine version, and then about 58 million won for the dual motor engine. Orders will be available now, and deliveries are scheduled to start in mid-March. So that will also provide another catalyst leading into March. So something else to look forward to. Polestar is aiming to sell 40,000 Polestar 2s in South Korea before 2022 is over. That's a pretty aggressive target. That is more than what they delivered last year. As I mentioned in one of our last videos, their 2021 targets were 29,000, and that was across multiple markets. Now they're planning to do 40,000 in just the South Korean market. So good for them if they can get these numbers. I'll be definitely keeping track of how they perform this year. Their goals never cease to amaze me. They're very ambitious, like I've mentioned in multiple videos, which is one of the reasons I'm very bullish in the company. I think the management team has their head on right, but they still have a lot to prove, so we'll have to keep an eye out, like I said. They did get a safety review. It received 5 stars from the European New Cars Assessment Program's safety test, and its overall result was higher than any EV in the world. So did I read that right? Let me read that again. Its overall result was higher than any other EV in the world. Does that beat Tesla? Does that include Tesla? You guys let me know. This might be a bigger statement than I initially thought now that I'm reading it. They are accommodating the Korean market. Pricing for the vehicle is set so that buyers can take full advantage of the Korean government subsidy. With the current Korean government, only vehicles costing 55 million won or less will be eligible for the full central government subsidy. So this is actually a great way that Polestar is going to be able to attract some of the customers. They were able to adjust their price tag on the vehicles to accommodate the subsidiary. So this actually helps the consumer out. It's going to help Polestar increase their sales. And it also shows that Polestar is taking the customer into account when they're doing all their marketing. So that is great to see. They're also going to offer 6 different colors at no additional cost. So that's going to be exclusive to the Korean market. In the US, black is the standard color and all the other colors cost an additional $1,200. So customers in the Korean market will also take advantage of that benefit there, further giving Polestar a great selling point. Last thing on this article is just going back to their ambitious goals. Polestar initially launched deliveries of the Polestar 2 in Europe of 2020, so just a little over 2 years ago. And since then, they were able to establish markets in the USA by summer of 2021. For 2021, Polestar was able to meet their target of 29,000 vehicles around the globe. And by the end of next year, Polestar aims to be present in 30 markets around the world. One thing I didn't see on this article, but I read somewhere else, is that South Korea is one of the 5th Asian markets they have already tapped into. The other ones are Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia, and New Zealand. But you guys probably already know about this. I did talk about this in a previous video. When they had their December event launch and elaborated on some of the new models coming into the market. But overall, this is great news. They're executing on their plans, so very excited for this year. This last article I want to go over, I think is going to bring some optimism to all the GGPI and Polestar investors. Obviously, the share price hasn't had too much volume, too much attention. Even though they're constantly bringing great news, the stock price hasn't really reflected that. But I think this article brings back some conviction into why we're investing in this. So at the moment, GGPI stock is stuck in neutral. We've been stuck around $11 and $12 for more than a month. The reality is though that Polestar is delivering on its end of the bargain. So for long-term aggressive investors who seek exposure to electric vehicles and don't already own GGPI, it is an excellent name to buy. And if you do own the shares, don't worry about its poor performance recently. So that is very true. Polestar is definitely delivering on its end of the bargain. And honestly, I'm not too worried about Gore's end. They are a solid SPAC management team. They've actually closed a lot of mergers, so their reputation is pretty good. Now, some of those stocks haven't really performed well, but I don't think that's on the SPAC side. That's more of the business just not being very good. But on the Gore's team, they have a very well track record. So this is a perfect merger partner. Polestar is a great company and they have a great backing in Gore's. They also add that Polestar will deliver considerable wealth to its patient shareholders in the future. Completely agree with that. We really just got to be patient. Obviously, I think a lot of downside selling pressure is because of the overall market. And there's still not tons of investors on board with GGPI. Comparing that to like Lucid or Tesla, this one is being slept on. As far as a great entry point, GGPI stock under 10 would be an excellent entry point. It will give you exposure to one of the most exciting electric vehicles anywhere in the world at a reasonable price. January 11th, Polestar announced it met its goals of 29,000 electric vehicles last year. That represents 185% growth. So one of the biggest risks with startup companies is deliveries, so we can check that off the list. As far as it being an exciting electric vehicle, I will check that off as well. Reasonable price as well, check that list. And then the stock price is actually very attractive, even at $11, so we will check that off. So completely agree with this here. I won't bore you with some of the CEO quotes because we've kind of covered those in some of the other videos. But as far as their retail stores, I'm not sure if I mentioned, they are going to have 150 worldwide by end of 2022. So that will be this year. Their sales are trending higher and have already booked a healthy number of orders for the year ahead. Don't forget that this year they do have plans to release the Polestar 3, which is going to be their high-end SUV. The best part, like I said in other videos, is that it's going to be built in the US. It's going to be built in one of Volvo's South Carolina locations, I believe. And then that location, they'll be working with Volvo, Luminar, and I believe NVIDIA to work on their state-of-the-art autonomous driving technology. So that is planned to come in the Polestar 3. Moving down the timeline, they will bring the Polestar 4, which is going to be a smaller SUV version of the Polestar 3. And then finally in 2024, the Polestar 5 is due to arrive, which is going to be their super high performance sports car, but in a sedan version. So that is definitely going to be a unique approach. Now, I'll be honest, I think some of these timelines do get pushed back a quarter or two. These are pretty aggressive timelines, and we haven't really got a full spec detail on the Polestar 3. So that does make me a little nervous about them being able to deliver it this year. But they are very ambitious, and even I doubted their delivery numbers, but they were able to deliver that. So hey, I might be wrong and they deliver this in 2022. But you guys let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I do want to touch a little bit on the value proposition. It has an excellent SPAC merger partner, Alec Gores, which is a master of the private equity and arguably one of the world's best SPAC investors. So as I mentioned earlier, he has a great track record. He's been closing tons of SPAC mergers, so this is definitely not his first rodeo. Secondly, has been developed with a full backing and engineering resources of Big Daddy Volvo and Mama Geely. So as far as backing, we got that covered. Polestar's valuation after the merger will be around a market cap of $25 billion based on 2.13 billion outstanding shares. So that's a pretty high valuation and pretty good dilution, but you got to compare some of that to the other electric vehicles, especially comparing this to Lucid. Polestar looks like a steal. Even just comparing the revenues, Polestar's going to bring in like 1.6 billion this year. So really no competition in my book, at least for right now. Last thing on this article before we move on to the chart, I continue to believe that Polestar could be one of the finest investments to come since Tesla. Polestar will continue to deliver for the owners of GGPI stock before and after 2022's merger. It is an excellent buy for long-term investors, and I do want to touch bases on this. Excellent buy for long-term investors. I think he's completely right. I think at this point, this is not going to be a short squeeze play or an options play. This is actually turning to be a long-term position. Now, of course, if this does run to $25, $35 very fast, then I will take some profits, but this is a candidate for a great long-term position, so don't think that this is going to run overnight. The patient investors will definitely benefit more in my opinion. So guys, this is our chart from last time. I haven't really touched much. In our last video, I mentioned this was a potential head and shoulders. Obviously, this is coming back down to the neckline, but I do want to clear this chart just to give you guys a better picture of what's going on. So now that we have a better picture of the chart, you can see that the stock has been suffering. One of the reasons is because the volume is very low. Like I mentioned in some of the other videos, we need to get our volume to go up higher. Our current average volume is less than 3 million, and ideally we will probably need like 10 to 12 million to actually be able to get some buying pressure. But until then, we will continue to trade sideways around these levels. I also don't want to consider this as a short squeeze play. Our short interest rate has come down to about 2%, which is not very ideal. So really what we can rely on is volume coming back up. As far as key levels to watch, it's definitely going to be around the $11 range. As I mentioned, we do have this head and shoulders pattern forming. I think this weekly level is also very important, which is going to be around $11.20. If I'm being honest with you guys, this probably will break down to about $10. Just because of the overall market sentiment, it is tearing down high growth stocks. And with this having a pretty big market cap and the merger not happening until later this year, this is a pretty prime candidate to short right now. But like I said, we are long-term investors, so if it does come down to this level, I will probably add some more to positions. Now that is, if we come down, we could false break and come back up. It really just is hard to see where we could head. I think the only thing that could really push this up is if Tesla does great on earnings. Maybe that helps some of the EV sector. Other than that, if you're a long-term investor, I would definitely recommend shares instead of options. Don't do any options just because we don't really know when the merger will actually happen. For all we know, it could get pushed back. As for me, I'll continue to hold my shares and watch some of these levels, maybe scoop up some more shares. For those of you that stayed to the end of the video, I do want to jump over to Lucid. In my last video, I mentioned this was a great opportunity for puts. In the video, I mentioned that this was a potential head and shoulders, and that actually did break under. Also in Twitter, I did mention when this came back up and got rejected that this was a good time to get more puts, and that was coming back down now. So from a bigger time frame, it does look like it's coming down this channel here. In my opinion, it will most likely touch this monthly level here. If things get really bad, it's probably going to come down and touch these levels as well, $35. But just something I wanted to share with you guys. If you guys want to share plays with me or follow some of the plays, definitely follow me on Twitter. Well guys, that is all I have for today's video. Let me know down below what you guys are doing with your GGPI position. Also let me know how you guys are playing the PIF investment event. Obviously there might be some more downside to it, but you guys definitely do your own research. I am not a financial advisor. As far as long term, I believe both of these companies will succeed. Polestar already has great numbers and I think Lucid can do the same, but we'll save that for another video. I hope you guys have a great day, and as always, keep moving forward.